I have a memory burned into my brain forever of one of the character you're playing is Leon,
Hmm.
and the way one of the female characters just said Leon is just burned into my brain forever. It used to be a joke with me and my roommates back in a little bit post college era. Like we would yell at each other like that just randomly, and it's like
Leon.
Leon. It's just
Oh
yeah.
my
So
god.
like
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Millennial Button Mashers podcast. Before we jump in today, I actually wanted to say that while editing this video, we realized how long this episode was going to be and decided to split it into two. This week we will be going through part one, which is 2016 to 2020, and then we will continue into part two in next week's episode. So if you haven't already, please go in and subscribe so you don't miss out on part two or any future podcasts. With that, let's jump in, friends.
All right, and we are live. Cool. All right, so Gavin, this is episode 5 and our final episode of our Eras Tour series. Before we jump in, anything new and noteworthy you're playing and want to highlight?
yeah, I actually just started about 3 or 4 days ago. Got into a new game. I think it just released as well. It's called Escape Ever After. It's a little RPG type game. The reason I got into it is because a friend of mine had suggested it because it looks like the team that developed it was heavily inspired by Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door,
Mm-hmm.
and which is, like I stated in a previous episode, probably one of my favorite games ever. And I started playing it. I think about 8 hours in so far, and it's a really fun game. That's the game I've been jamming to recently.
Cool. It almost looks like, have you ever played Plucky Squire before?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Look that up too. I mean, I don't know exactly who developed Plucky Squire. It might be Devolver Digital. Don't quote me on that. But that's also
It
kind of very
is.
similar to Paper Mario. So
Yeah, it is. It is Devolver Digital. You were correct.
nice.
And
I know things
Sleepy
sometimes.
Castle, yeah, Sleepy Castle Studio is the
Mm,
developer of Escape Ever After.
cool. No, I love
It's
it. This looks
very,
really
yeah,
fun. 3D
yeah.
platformer kind of style.
That's more like RPG. Like it's like turn. There is some turn-based combat, so it might not be great for you, but it's fun. It's kind of like it's all like fairy tale. Obviously, like with the name implies like stories. Like you do some Three Little Pigs stuff, a little bit of like in the first one's not like a classic like tell like nursery rhyme story, but there's a lot of like nursery rhyme kind of stuff.
Hmm,
It's pretty cool.
it looks very neat. No, I think
Mm-hmm.
to your point, and maybe something we talked about previously, but as long as the game has a good like art direction, that usually is like something that pulls me in. I can get past some of the mechanics that I don't necessarily like the turn-based stuff. I'll try it because I mean
Yeah.
this does look very cool. So thanks for highlighting that. And you're right, it did come out 23rd, so last week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I played it the day it came out then because I had wish listed it and then I guess I got the notification that it released, so went for it.
nice, cool, and yeah, it's very listed as very positive on Steam right now. So very, very cool. I guess quick plug for me. I'm still chugging along with Ball X Pit or Ball Pit, whatever. Surprisingly, very, very fun. Like we mentioned in previous episodes, I'm not necessarily a roguelike fan, but I think this has been helpful for me because what I've taken the game to be is like a pre-bed ritual, like going to bed and just playing like a round or two before I
Mm-hmm.
jump to reading my book before I go to bed. Also, just coming back from Cabo, Mexico was super nice because I was able to just play it between, the little flights that I had from like Cabo to Atlanta, for example. So that was really nice, made the time go by very quickly. And it's cool too because like I don't know if you'll ever get a chance to dive in there, Gavin, because I mean it might be, up your alley, but the characters are interesting where they each have like different like buffs or like specialties. There's actually a character specifically or characters. I think they're called like the abnormals or something like that. There's basically twins and they either shoot directly or they shoot opposite of each other. So if I'm shooting this way, they're fine, like they go straight. But if I turn them,
Mm-hmm.
they'll go the opposite way. Like the balls will go the opposite way, which is kind of interesting. And then since there's technically two sets of balls coming out, they go at half damage. So you kind of have to be very strategic about where you place the balls, especially if there's like a big boss in the middle. Like you might
Mm-hmm.
need to have one of the shooters on the boss, but then the other one on the people that are around them to like eliminate them and hopefully like open them up to further attacks. But I just thought it was interesting. Like, I didn't think I would like this game as much as I did, especially because it's a technically free game to me with Xbox Game Pass. So highly recommend it. I mean, it's good if you like roguelikes.
I'm a fan. I'm a sucker for roguelikes, so we might be putting that in the rotation in the near future.
Very nice, very nice. Cool. One other question for you before we jump into the games that shaped our adulthood eras of our lives is the concept of gaming developers and video game companies gearing themselves away from the childhood market. So just to frame up our conversation before we jumped onto this podcast, I was listening to the Friends Per Second podcast, which is Jake Baldino, Lucy James, I think is what her last name is, and then Skill Up. They're just famous YouTubers in the video game industry, and they do a lot of like following of news stories and things within the industry. And they were talking specifically about how Nintendo has always done well with positioning itself in the childhood market, but also in the beyond market as well. Like, just thinking back to our childhood, Gavin, like how you got into video games because of some Nintendo properties, GameCube properties, etc. Like, it kind of followed you through your childhood. Same for me as well. Like with Nintendo, then PS2, then Xbox. Like, they got to us very early in their kind of marketing campaign, let's say. But I think it's interesting that if you think about our exposure to video games anymore, I don't feel like there's a lot of kid games being made. Maybe it's just because we don't see the marketing for those. But I think it's interesting because, like, with Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, they got in with the millennials and the Gen Zs very early, and they kind of progressed with us. They grew up with us, and we're kind of the target demographic for that gaming. Not always. Like, there's still other gamers that are older or younger than us. That's fine. But I feel like that was their target demo. With the younger generation, though, they have iPads, which is very mobile gaming centric. Don't understand, but that's very popular. There's also like Roblox. There's Minecraft, which we've talked about before. Minecraft being a phenomenon across all generations, I would say. But then there's also Fortnite. I'm just curious, like, do you feel like, other than Nintendo, do you feel like Sony and Microsoft are kind of shooting themselves in the foot because eventually their target demographic, which is us, will eventually probably phase out of video games? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're kind of following the generation of video games, but is the younger generation going to backfill those people that will ultimately fall off because of kids, career, etc.? What are your thoughts?
I mean, had you not brought up Nintendo staying with it, I was going to say, yeah, Nintendo's the one that's still, like, to a fault almost, still makes a lot of their games very kid-friendly, like Pokemon, for example. Like, there's a lot of people that complain about how, like, as adults, like our age and a little bit younger maybe, complain about how easy those games are, like the main story of them, because like yeah, I'm 20, 30 years old. I don't need to be taught how to do this, but they keep making their games for, like, we want them to be for all ages, but so they make it for the youngest age possible or whatever. But yeah, so Nintendo's still doing a good job with that. I mean, Sony and Microsoft, I feel like they just they don't necessarily need to, because like they have the capabilities of playing the games that all the kids are playing. Like, a lot of kids are playing your Robloxes, your Fortnites, stuff like that, which can be played on those consoles. So I think they're just banking on the fact that you're going to be on the console, then you'll start playing their games once you grow out of those. And then also, just in general, it feels like, as far as like marketing, because I remember when we were kids, I remember seeing like commercials for Crash Bandicoot. Like, it was like, there's a guy in a Crash Bandicoot mascot costume that was huge, and it was like for like Domino's Pizza or something. I don't remember exactly which just goes to show how impactful Crash was, because I remember that there was a Crash commercial, but I don't remember what it was for. But they used to do that kind of stuff, and they don't really do it much anymore. And I think it's a lot of times because kids, I mean, the internet does a really good job of marketing for itself almost. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
If it becomes viral and people enjoy it, like, they don't need to put TV ads. Like, TV ads nowadays are for, like, there's hardly ever any video games in general that are advertised on TV.
Yeah, very
Except
true.
for, like, maybe, like, your sports games that get bought every year anyways.
Yeah,
like,
or your
it's
Call
just,
of
I feel
Duties
like,
or whatever.
yeah, your Call of Duties. Like, I feel like in general, marketing for video games nowadays, like, they don't even consider TV.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I mean, that is fair. There's also social media too that gets pushed directly to people. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they use social media, and then they use YouTube or anything that's not on like cable TV to push marketing.
Exactly. And I feel like with our generation, we kind of grew into, well, I don't feel like we did necessarily, but we kind of have moved away from fun commercials, which still exist. Don't get me wrong. Like they still exist for like toys and stuff. Not as prevalent, but there's also like the influencer era that we've lived through where I feel like there's a lot of, let's say, YouTubers that promote products for whatever reason. There's a lot of Instagram famous people that promote some kind of product for whatever reason. I mean, there's Amazon wish lists, there's other things like that. So it could just be that we're not necessarily seeing that marketing that's going on behind the scenes. And maybe it is just taking place because it's following those organic channels that you and I wouldn't have access to or see.
Yeah, you brought up a good point with the with the like the streaming of stuff. Like there are quite a few games nowadays that will pay big streamers on Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff to play their game when it comes out, or even like usually they'll give them a copy like the week before it comes out, and they'll have a sponsored stream where they play the game, and like there's your ad. Like that's what they do instead of doing TV ads anymore. It's because you get to watch someone you watch every day anyways, and then you watch them play a new game, and you're like, "Well, I want to try that new game." I mean, like I said, with all the roguelikes, I think like 60% of the ones I bought last year because a couple streamers I watch play them all the time. So
Right. And the Steam sales, of course, that we've talked about.
yeah, well, Steam
ad
sales doesn't
nauseum.
help.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. Anything else on that thought before we jump into adulthood gaming era for us?
No, I think we hit it pretty well. It's just the way I think the way that it's advertised and promoted has changed so much because the way in which it's consumed has changed as well.
Yeah, totally fair. Okay, cool. All right. So for those listening that maybe have not listened to the previous episodes, this is our last of many episodic series of Eras Tour style episodes. And what we mean by that is we took a first glance into childhood era, middle school era, high school era, and college era as well. So please go back and watch those episodes if you haven't already or listen to them. This one will be our final one where we talk a little bit about post-collegiate years. What were the games that we had top of mind during this time period? And just to frame our conversation too, just to make it a little bit easier, Gavin and myself tried to limit ourselves to one game that was noteworthy for the year. There was sometimes hard ones where we had 2 or 3, but that's how we're going to frame our conversation from 2016 all the way down to 2025. Keep in mind too, we're going to be doing a look back episode eventually as well, looking back at our favorite games of 2025. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe for that because we'll be posting that after this series. But Gavin, I'll actually let you go first. 16, tell us a little bit about it, and then what games were you playing during that time?
So lead up into this, there's a game that I pretty much still play to this day that I played throughout all these years, so you can kind of include this in all these years. That's League of Legends. I started playing it, I think, back in 2014, which I talked about a little bit last time. And that's a big game that game has consumed a lot of my time, but the game specific to 2016 that I wanted to talk about, the first one was Pokemon Go. It was a craze. Those of you who slept under a rock or weren't alive around that time, it basically made it so you could go play Pokemon in real life. You know, it did the augmented reality and showed you'd be standing in the middle of a city square and you would see a Charmander just on a little street corner and you run and go catch it. And I mean, I think it pretty much it branched Pokemon off into a demographic that never really played it because everyone was playing it because it was just cool. You went and walked around, you'd walk on a hike, you'd go catch a Machop at the top of your hike. And then you would just, people would go and traveling and running and doing stuff and going into areas, which caused problems eventually because there was people that were taking advantage of like certain Pokemon stops and they would hide knowing that people are going to be there looking for a Charizard or a Dragonite, and then they'd commit crimes. Before that happened, it was just pure fun, and you just, everyone that whole summer of 2016, I don't think I knew anyone that did not play it.
No, I agree with you.
I'm assuming you were in on that train as well?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know, like, to your point, I think you would have had to sleep under a rock to not know at least it existed. Maybe you didn't play it, but you knew it was a phenomenon, especially because that was the first time that you kind of saw people in public playing it at length. Like, what I mean by that is, like, you'd see hordes of people grouped around like a bus stop or a church or a school. And then actually my brother and sister-in-law still play to this day. They're still obsessed with it, which I think, like myself, like I played it pretty hardcore for about 3-ish months, and then I kind of fell off. The interesting thing, though, for me with Pokemon Go specifically is 2016 was when I was moving from obviously collegiate to professional career. And I was in a consulting gig at the time, but in those first 3 months, we were in a training period. And there was probably like 15 of us that were going through this training program in Indianapolis. And basically what we would do on our breaks, we'd all pull out our phones, download Pokemon Go, and we'd like walk around the mall just on our breaks and go and do that. So it was kind of a good moment for us to all bond as a group because we were all around the same age-ish. And everybody was obsessed with it. So yeah, I mean, I honestly, until you mentioned Pokemon Go just now, I wouldn't even have thought about it because it was kind of like it came and went for like a cultural phenomenon, but it has staying power. Like there's a lot of people that still play it.
Yeah. I know a few people that still play. I'm not one of those, but I did also have a little funny side story on that. At that time I was working on at an LTL carrier, driving a forklift, and I don't know if you remember this, but they implemented like a speed limit because people were driving to like hatch your eggs. So if you went too fast, it would like know that you're doing it. Well, forklifts don't go fast enough for it to trigger the speed thing. So I would have my phone constantly running and hatching eggs while I'm just driving around working. So I would just be driving around the whole dock, and then like every couple minutes I'd check to see how close I was to hatching eggs, and I was just constantly hatching eggs because the forklift went fast. Obviously, I'm not actually doing the walking there, and it was an easy way to hatch your eggs without actually having to do the work.
Yeah, that was one thing that I did appreciate about Pokemon Go too, was the fact that gaming historically is very sedentary. Like there's not a lot of action involved unless you're doing VR or you're doing like the Wii stuff like we talked about in the past, or Connect. Exactly. Historically speaking, video games has been a very sedentary lifestyle for most people, which is fine. I think it's for, you and I, Gavin, like I think we use it as a stress outlet, relaxing engine. But the one thing I did like about Pokemon was it actually got people that historically wouldn't have even left their house to play Pokemon. It got them out to go and explore, meet up with friends. And it was kind of like a good social outlet for a lot of folks, just to be able to go and see things in public and go and interact with stuff. So that's one thing I did appreciate about it, especially from like a health and wellness perspective too.
Yeah, Pokemon got into doing a lot of stuff that did that kind of thing. I don't know if you've heard of Pokemon Sleep. It's a game that like tracks you sleep, and it tells you how it's almost like like the Whoop bands where it like tracks how well you sleep. It's like that, but Pokemon, and it's an app or whatever. And yeah, I've never really delved into it, but I've heard a little bit about it, and it's supposed to be like they gamify sleeping with Pokemon to like try to help that kind of thing as well.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that. What's it? Pokemon Sleep is what it's called?
Yeah, just Pokemon Sleep.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'll do some research on it to see.
Yeah.
I know you got another game here listed. Do you want to go into that, and then I'll go into my 2016 game?
Yeah. The other one I had listed was Undertale. It was a fun little like indie game that came out. It came out towards the end of 2015, but I played it during 2016. Counts. Yeah, it's like a old school 80s, 90s graphic style RPG where you're like, I think it was developed by a single person named Toby Fox.
It's pixel art, right?
Yeah, it's like pixel art. That's what I'm saying. It's like the 80s like a style appeal. It's just you're a character that's walking around and you're a little person trying to get through objectives and progress the story without getting in any details. And it's just fun. It's just a fun game. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of people that were doing that. It was a lot of AAA stuff. And this is one of the first like indie titles that really broke through. I mean, there's people that still consider it to be like the greatest game of all time. Like that's how good it is. It won Game of the Year, multiple accolades. It's been released on every console been re-released on every console that's come out since it came out. And yeah, it's just it does one of the things that I've noticed a pattern with this is it's got fun game, good music, good story. And if you got those three things, you've taken my money out of my wallet because I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, I think I actually downloaded Undertale on my Xbox at one point, and I did like it. I don't know why I moved away from it. It definitely wasn't in the 2016 era. I want to say this was closer in the 20s. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why I moved away from it was just because it was so hard, to be honest with you. Because
Yeah, it's pretty
isn't the
tough.
bosses like it's in a square and like you're trying to like dodge all the bullets and stuff. Basically, they're
Mhm.
coming your way. Yeah,
Yep. It's definitely a somewhat unforgiving game from that aspect.
yeah, I got you. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
2016 for me. I listed Dark Souls 3. I'm actually gonna look that up because I thought that's when it came out. Yeah, it is 2016. Those not familiar, or maybe if this is your first episode with Gavin and I, Dark Souls and Bloodborne series has always been close to my heart. I think the reason why is a couple things. I think the art style is always super compelling. There's always a lore there that you don't necessarily need to know in depth, but if you do want to know it, it's there for you, which I think I appreciate because it's not, it's not too much, but it's not too little for the people that do like it. This was my first foray actually into that Dark Souls series. So I didn't play 2 or 1 or Demon Souls. I didn't play any of those, but this was my first one. And the thing that I like most about Dark Souls 3 was the fact that the very first boss was very challenging, very cool looking, but I also appreciate that the first boss is always like a tutorial boss almost. It's like, if you can get past this first boss, you'll be okay in the rest of the game, which I've always appreciated too. Like, there's something to say about like these games being soul crushing, basically. Like, people always say that these are some of the hardest games out there, which is very true. But I think the dopamine hit that I get, at least from beating these bosses after 90 tries, let's say, it's probably something about my personality that's very toxic, but I like it. And I think a lot of people do too. And I think it's mostly just like the art style again that goes into that, because I was always interested in a little bit more learning, like, what world would I see next? What level does, what does this next level look like? What does the next boss look like? And so I always liked playing those games as well. But Gavin, you never played any of the Dark Souls games, did you?
No, that's like I said in the intro episode, I appreciate those games, but I know myself well enough to know I will get too mad, so I'll just watch people play them. I've watched streamers play them. I've watched like speedruns of the game. Like I didn't watch the whole stream, but someone did a challenge where they beat the entire Dark Souls franchise in order without getting
Oh,
hit.
wow.
So if they got
Wow.
hit at any point, so if you're playing Dark Souls 3 and you get hit at any point, you have to start the challenge completely over.
Did they start
So
with
this
Demon
took like
Souls or the regular Dark Souls? Do you know?
I do not. I think they went like when it released. So I think
Okay.
they started with Dark
Okay.
Souls.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, either way, like so. I mean, I think it took them multiple months to be able to pull this off because they would get so close and you just get hit one time and you're just done. And it's
And it's
yeah.
not dying once, right? It's getting
No, it's
literally
getting
like
hit.
nicked.
Like it's not even dying. Like if you get hit for one damage, you get hit for
No.
one damage in a fight, you restart the whole thing. But the pop off when they finish the run, oh my gosh.
I can't even
Like
imagine. That would take me like, I don't think I could do it
yeah.
ever.
The dopamine I got, I can only imagine what they had cuz like they're like must have hit like crack cuz that was awesome. It was cool to watch and it was it was crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Not to sidebar us. I know we talked about Outlast last time, but when I was Twitch streaming, I was doing Outlast, and then Outlast 2 came out shortly after that, I think. And they had like a hardcore mode, and I think you had to beat the main storyline before this would get unlocked. But same thing. It was if you got caught in the game or killed, you basically had to go back to square one and you would start from square one. So this game, it's not long by any means. It's probably like 8 hours ish. Don't quote me on that. Depends like how you play. But I remember explicitly there was some of those speed runs that I was trying to do where it was like hardcore mode or something all in one run. And I don't think I ever finished it, to be honest with you, because every time I would get to a certain
it's
point
tough.
where like I was trying to move fast, move too fast, and got caught and got killed, and then I would have to start over. So, I mean, it's great for clicks. Don't get me wrong. Like, people did watch me for that reason. Just funny. Kind of along the same lines, though.
Yeah.
Bleeding into Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne was the next one I played in that series, which I know actually I think came out before Dark Souls 3, which is kind of funny. But quick sidebar, a buddy of mine that I was in college with and also followed me to my first job out of college, Nick, he actually got me back into playing games like this. Playing games as in, like, I had moved away from PlayStation. I think we talked about this in a previous episode. But I bought a PlayStation 4 in 2017, and the explicit reason why I bought it was for Bloodborne. I was so driven by the narrative, the art style, the boss design. Like, I was just so compelled that I had my own money at the time. I was an adult finally. I could afford it, and I bought it. And that was the main reason why I had a PS4 and how I got back into like the Sony/PlayStation ecosystem. Also, at the same time, VR was starting to be very popular, virtual reality. And that's when the PSVR came out. And I wasn't necessarily into like the MetaQuest or anything like that. Like, it just never was compelling to me. But one of the main VR games that I did want to play with the PS4 was Batman Arkham. We've talked about the Arkham series in the past. You can probably see where this is going. It's very fun. But I think the cool thing about Batman Arkham that was compelling to me was it, based on your field of view, like your level would change. Like, obviously back in the day, like, we couldn't move seamlessly between the levels. So like you had to like point and like click to move places, or it would be head tracking. So like, I remember there was a level in Batman Arkham where you would look forward and it was Joker was like messing with you or something, making you see illusions or whatever. And so he had you look forward, and then all of a sudden, like, there was no noise, no sound, and then you're like, okay, like, what's happening? And so you turn around organically, because that's what you would do in real life. You turn around, there's nothing there, and then you turn back, and like he jumps in front of you and like scares the crap out of you. And I just remember that being like such a cool, like, I don't know, piece of the game that like kept me engaged. It kept me on my toes. Honestly, it was terrifying because it shouldn't have been terrifying for a Batman game, but it was cool. And so those two games were kind of like my game of the year in two different genres. Obviously, Bloodborne being more like your typical controller console game, and then Batman Arkham VR was also very fun too.
Yeah.
But what about you, Gavin?
2017 for me was the year of Nintendo back. That's when the Switch came out. So the two, I couldn't really say one. I went with Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Both games were incredible displays of what the Switch could do at the time, and they were good installations or installments of both series. I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild was the first, like, or the least on the rails of any Zelda game. Like, you can kind of do whatever you wanted. It was really cool. Like, you can kind of go anywhere and do anything. There was no, like, I mean, they had bosses and stuff like this and like a story you followed, but you can kind of go in any order. There wasn't like a somewhat set path. That was really cool at the time. Looked incredible. And then Super Mario Odyssey, kind of the same thing. They introduced the new type of mechanic with the hat, throwing the hat to turn into other creatures. I mean, with one of the first levels, you turn into a T-Rex, and it was like one of the coolest things ever. You throw a hat on a T-Rex and turn into a giant T-Rex as Mario. It's just like, I don't know. It was cool. It does everything else that, you know, previous Mario games have done. Good music, good levels, hard bosses but beatable, and it's just those two are definitely those were co-game of the year for me for that 2017, because it was right when the Switch came out. I got the Switch at midnight release, and the Switch I got from there finally died last year, which made me need to get a Switch too. But yeah, so that's finally died on me. So yeah, those two titles from the Switch were my 2017 game.
Nice. Yeah, I actually played Mario Odyssey, let's say 10, well, probably not 10 years after the fact, obviously, but it was close to like 5 years after the fact, because one of the perks of my job is we get basically points. So like, you do a good job on a customer facing meeting, great, you get some points. And you can redeem them for Amazon gift cards. And so one thing I do at the end of the year is I take that bucket, redeem it for an Amazon gift card, and then I basically buy myself something with that Amazon gift card. I'd actually bought myself a Nintendo Switch OLED, which you and I have talked about in the past, I think. But
yeah,
I bought that back in 2023, I think. I still don't play it as much as I should, but I do appreciate it, because especially one compelling reason for me to get it was specifically Mario Odyssey. One sidebar tangent that I hate about Nintendo is they have games that have been out for years and they still won't cut the price. So like when I bought Mario Odyssey, it was still the same price as what it was on day one of launch, which I mean, it just says how compelling Nintendo is and how good of products they make, but it was still frustrating. I was so mad. I was like, why? This game has been out for 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was at the time, and it still costs the same amount.
And they don't do sales really either.
No. Which, I mean, if your business model allows you to not have sales and still have such a crazy, loyal fan base, like, whatever. I mean, that's good business, I guess. One thing I'm going to tee you up for, and I'm actually going to surprise you didn't put this on your list, but 2018 Spider-Man PS4. I mean, we talked about this before. You actually got the Spider-Man version of the PS. I mean, we could talk ad nauseum about this game. I think the swinging mechanics were amazing. The story was amazing. The voice acting was amazing. I mean, there's not a lot that I can't like just gush about this game with. I mean, especially because from the perspective of New York City, it is probably the most true rendition of what New York City feels like from a video game perspective. But I guess, Gavin, I know you love Spider-Man like myself. I was kind of surprised to not see this on your list with 2018.
I just didn't put it on my list because you put it on yours.
Okay,
yeah, I saw
fair.
your list, but I cheated. So I used your list to put it on mine. And then so I figured I'd put another game there. But to talk more about Spider-Man, it's just, I don't know. It's one of the first games where when you're swinging, it feels like such a goofy thing to say, but like, you feel like you're it feels like you're swinging on the webs and like you're doing all the cool stuff. And then like the Yuri Lowenthal, who does the voice acting for Spider-Man, does a perfect job of like while you're fighting, doing his little quips and talking his trash while still fighting and like making sure to like, I don't know. It's just chef's kiss. Like there's nothing bad I will ever say about that game other than maybe it's too short. Like I would play 120-hour version of that game if they made it and continue to just drop DLC for it. That's my only complaint is there's not enough of it.
No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, we could, again, talk about Spider-Man PS4 forever just because of how revolutionary the swinging mechanics were, the story, the world that it was built in. And I think Spider-Man 2 did a good job of expanding on that narrative, expanding to different boroughs of New York, which I know is in your list later. You know, spoiler alert, we'll talk about it later. But I think it does a really good job of reinvigorating Spider-Man because I feel like there was a period where Spider-Man games were only coming out and they were tied to the movies that were coming out. I think we've talked about that in a previous episode, but there was a time period probably in the early 2000s / maybe late 2000s where there was always these video game adaptations to popular movies, and that's what we were getting all the time with Spider-Man. And I mean, not to say that they were bad games, like bad Spider-Man games, but this one was the first like kind of standalone, on its own 2 feet, its own identity. And I think that's probably what made it stand out the most was it wasn't tied to something. It was its own thing.
Yeah. If I could put on a tinfoil hat for a second, I think part of the reason that game got made is because that's when the Spider-Man was allowed back into the MCU from Sony. And so Sony doesn't want to make a tie-in game for a movie that they don't wholly get sales from. So the whole, without speaking too long on it, the whole them allowing the MCU to use Spider-Man, basically it allowed them to share revenue. So a little conspiratorially, I think part of the reason they made this game is because people were wanting a Spider-Man game, but they made it their own game so that Sony gets 100% of the profits from the game, as opposed to if they made any of the ones that they made movies on into a game, they would have to share some of the profit with the MCU because they'd be using some of that licensing and stuff like that, which we're better off for it because it's an incredible game. But I think that's part of the reason why it was done. And also Insomniac wanted to do that. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know enough about like the IP restrictions and like money share and all that stuff. But I mean, it doesn't sound far off. The only thing I was going to say too, just on your note on Insomniac, we talked about Insomniac before, creating revolutionary games like Ratchet and Clank, and they're supposed to be coming out with a new game this year. I think Wolverine is supposed to come out this year. So fingers crossed that will come out. I think Insomniac always has a good touch and good feel for how to keep things true to what they are, but also take creative liberties on things that work well based off the universe. And they always dive in head first and kind of do a lot of good things for the community, let's say, like in terms of expanding lore, expanding story, but not in a distasteful way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Move on to, let's say, okay, 2018 for you, Gavin.
Yeah. Since we already covered Spider-Man, I figured I'd highlight another super fun game from that time. It was South Park: The Fractured But Whole. That's B-U-T Whole, W-H-O-L-E. It's the sequel to their game from a couple years prior that was The Stick of Truth, which is them. That was more of like a high fantasy Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings style game, RPG, where the kids were, playing it out, and you actually got to play as the new kid, and then you played out the whole story. Well, this was the sequel to that, where instead of doing the high fantasy stuff, they were doing more of superheroes. They were leaning into that because, that's around the time of pop culture that was what was happening. And it was just it was a super fun game. I put a lot of hours into it probably back in the day. And it kept that South Park humor that they're known for, which is crass but topical, while still being just a fun game in general. It's just like, it was like, if you took just the bones of the game and put like a different thing on it, it would be a fun game, and then having it be a South Park game on top of that made it even better.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't ever play it, but I think I watched people play it. And it's turn-based as well, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's turn-based. The first one is more of like a traditional turn-based, and then the sequel was more is similar to like a XCOM or like a Baldur's Gate, where it's like you can affect areas and it's like turn-based like that, where it's more like true to, because they kind of wanted to make it like a D&D type thing, like that style of combat, whereas the first one is just purely your traditional RPG combat, where you're in a line, hit, 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 hit. Right. This one actually you can move around, you could pull in hazards that would affect the map and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see them improve on it. And I mean, one of the funniest things that happened with both of those games is they actually had to sit there and map out how South Park is on a map. Because when they have it on TV, they just cut to wherever they want to go, right? Like, they don't have to show you walking from Stark's Pond to the school. Like, there's no route. They just cut to it. So they actually had to have month-long meetings to figure out how stuff was mapped out, because they had never thought about it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
I was going to say, I love the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Like the extra TLC that goes into doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to 2019. Two very different games. I'll start with mine. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Reflecting back on 2019, obviously that was the first Star Wars game like this, where we're kind of going back to almost like the Force Unleashed kind of style of games. Like Force Unleashed came out in like, let's say early 2000s, fact check me on that, but where basically they took what was good about those, but then they also made it kind of almost like Dark Souls style. Like they kind of had a bonfire system in place. They had bosses. It was challenging, but not accessible. Like it was kind of like I don't want to say it was an easier version of Dark Souls, but it was like the same premise, same mechanics, very cool, but accessible to the mainstream. And it also kind of expanded on the Star Wars lore. So they actually had another one later, Jedi Survivor or something like that, which was also very good. But Gavin, did you play any of those Star Wars games?
I did not, actually. I was going to ask you, is that the one that had Will Poulter in it as the main character? Like the actor?
Let me see. I'm going to look him up while we're here.
I think if that's the game I'm thinking of. I know of it. I don't know, got out of Star Wars games for whatever reason. Just was playing other stuff. But I think that's the one that he was like the face model and stuff for.
It says Cameron Monaghan of Cal
I might be confusing those two then.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know who the.
Yeah, that is okay. So it's the person I was thinking of, but I had the wrong name, because I remember him from Gotham. He played the Joker. The character
didn't
that
know that.
becomes, it's not actually the Joker, but they kind of make it the Joker. It's weird. That show's
Like
whole
young
weird.
Joker
Like,
or something.
we'd have to do like a 4-episode breakdown of Gotham, which would be like, that show is so weird. It's a whole thing, but it's a good show.
Yeah,
But
I gotcha. Well, I mean, not to sidebar us, but I think you and I have talked about The Penguin, which was on HBO, which was a very good series for those that haven't watched
oh
it.
yeah,
Very, very good. But yeah,
very
Gavin,
good.
2019, go ahead. What's your game?
Yeah, 2019 for me was Cuphead. Technically, again, we're cheating a little bit, but it was released in 2017. But I didn't start playing it until 2019. It was also, yeah, it was released on the Switch in 2019. So there's my
There you
yeah, it was technically
Did you play it
released
on
in
the Switch or did you
2019.
play it on PC?
I played on PC, but
Okay.
that's beside the point.
That's
I
neither
think,
here nor there.
but yeah, but I mean, and again, apparently, another theme that I've learned about myself is that if it's an indie developed game or if it's Nintendo, I'm probably gonna like it. But
Right.
it's a run and gun kind of game where you're Cuphead, who's, as the name implies, he's a little guy with a cup for a head and a straw coming out the back, and he runs around, trying to save, save his grandpa's soul who sold his soul to the devil, trying to get it back. And yeah, you run around, shoot stuff, and it's like a classic run and gun type, like almost like throwing back to the old arcade games, like
Yep.
all those kind. And then it's just an incredibly designed game. The music is all like jazz, like that kind of style music. Same with the animation and everything. Every single thing that you see in the game was hand drawn by a person, which to me is just like incredible that they were able to make it look as good as it does and as smooth as it is. It plays well, and it's just fun. It's super fun. Every level has different bosses, and all the bosses are super unique. And it, like you've said, it builds out the world. The storytelling's great. I think Netflix even made a Cuphead TV show years
did they?
later.
I didn't know that.
That was super cool. I think it came out in 2022. Yeah, it was just, yeah, and it was like they almost take the story that happens in the game and then turn it into like episodic little thing. It was a cool little show. And yeah,
Interesting.
I
Would you
mean,
recommend giving it a watch?
Oh yeah, it was okay. I'd say
Yeah.
play the game. I would say play the game first, but did you play Cuphead at all?
I did. And I hate to say this, it raked me over the coals. Like, it was such a hard game.
Oh yeah.
I loved the art style and I wanted to play it so badly, but I would argue it's probably one of the hardest games of all time. And that's saying something coming from me because, like, obviously we've said this before, but Elden Ring, Dark Souls, like, all those are kind of like my game. Man, it's a hard game. I tried to play it. I still have it. I still probably will pick it up again at some point in the future. But the one thing that I think was against it for me was the fact that, like, it wasn't super accessible to everybody. If it had like a levels system, like where you could make it super easy and it was just all story and narrative driven, fantastic. Like, I would jump in. And I hate to say that, and people are just going to be like, get good, you noob, or whatever. I don't care. It just, like, I couldn't beat it. And so I never did, but I did download it. So I'm full supportive of the developer, the people making the game. I just didn't ever finish it.
Yeah, I mean it's a run and gun and also like what's called a bullet hell style game where like there's constantly bullets coming at you and you have to dodge all of them while shooting your gun.
Right.
Yeah, it is an incredibly difficult game. But it's similar to your Dark Souls where as soon as when you beat a level finally you freak out and it's, pure elation. But yeah,
The dopamine hit for sure.
mm-hmm.
Nice. Do you want to go into your 2020 and then I'll do mine?
Yeah, I'll jump into my 2020. 2020 obviously was a super chill year where nothing happened at all. Obviously kidding. This is where COVID happened and ravaged the whole world and everyone was stuck inside. The two games that come to mind for that time of like being for me were Animal Crossing New Horizons and Among Us. Animal Crossing, it's, one of those like peaceful
Cozy
type games. Cozy game, yeah, good. That's the word I was looking for. It's a cozy type game where you run around as a little guy, run on building in the house on an island, and you kind of run around building up the island to be as big or however you want it, and you just make the island fun to be on, and you fish and you catch bugs and do all that kind of stuff, which is super fun. And then Among Us is It was a fun game that I played with a lot of friends because obviously during the tumultuous year that was 2020, you know, a lot of isolation. So Among Us helped with that. And then I don't know, have you played Among Us at all, Dylan?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's a
Okay.
free to play game too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe it is now, but I don't think it was originally.
Okay. Yeah, it was relatively
Either
cheap
way,
though, I think, right?
yeah. It's like it was under $10.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's very good. I liked it.
Yeah, social deduction game. It kind of started a trend of companies making what I call friend slop
Yep.
games, where it's like games that are just designed
Goofy.
for you to play with your friends, and like it's social deduction type games where, you know, someone's the bad guy secretly, similar to your mafias that you would play in person, and like Secret Hitler, and that you would play in like card form, but this was a video game version of that, and it was just super fun, and it kind of took the whole, like, everyone was playing Among Us in 2020.
Yes.
I mean, it even got a shout out. There was, I don't know if you watched the Knives Out series, but in the second one, at the very beginning, they're playing Among Us.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, that's the game that he's playing with, like with like Steven Sondheim and all the other like famous people that he's playing the game with, and that's the game they're playing is Among Us.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it was such a cultural phenomenon, I think, because it came out on PC first, and then it finally made its way to consoles. I don't know why I never played with friends. That's actually like something I might bring up to my college buddies, because it would be fun just to play amongst, like, let's say less than 10 people that you know, and just mess around one Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the appeal to it. Was it's kind of like, what's it called? There's like a card game that's very similar. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like Werewolf or Secret Hitler is another one. It's similar. It's a similar type game. Or you just play Mafia, where it's a very similar vibe, and it's like you're hanging out with your friends, and you're like, someone's the imposter just because, like, kill them, throw them off the ship because they're the bad guys, and it's like, why? Oh, it's just because you don't like, just because it's funny to hear the reaction when they crash out, and it's like they didn't really do anything. And they're like, well, they threw them off. Now we need to throw them off because they threw us. And it's like, no, they were just trying to be funny. And then secretly in the background, you know, people are the imposters are just benefiting from it completely.
Right. No, I did love Among Us, and I think I've actually played that recently. But to your point, I think it did kick off a genre that's kind of like you said, Gavin, like a endlessly online kind of like party style game, where I think like Fall Guys is kind of in that category for me. I don't know if you agree, but kind of like a goofy like game that you would play just like rounds of. And again, I don't think it's like roguelike necessarily, but I think that was kind of like the start of roguelikes, if it makes sense. Like you would just play a round, you would play something different. I guess it's kind of more just multiplayer style. But...
I was gonna say it has the replayability factor of those.
Maybe that's kind of what I'm thinking. No,
yeah,
you're
like
right.
the constant replay factor of those, because it's
but
still
no differentiation really. Just other than the players that you play with.
The game is the game. Yeah, the game is the game, but yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. Cool. My game of 2020 was Ghost of Tsushima. And I was kind of surprised to see that was coming out in 2020. Honestly, I was thinking about this on the plane ride back home yesterday. Like, it's so weird that we as a generation or we as a group of people can say that we lived through a global pandemic. And I don't even know, like, those years to me still feel like a blur. Like it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like it was 10 years ago. I don't know if you feel that same way, Gavin. Anyways, like in the realm of gaming, I had to actually dig to see like what did I even play that year, because there was so much going on. But it was Ghost of Tsushima, and I think we talked about this before. I still haven't played Ghost of Yote that came out last year, so that's still going to be on like my to be played list. But Ghost of Tsushima was a very cool game. Sucker Punch was the developer behind it, which Sucker Punch Studios were the original makers of Sly Cooper series, so makes sense why I liked it. But it was something that was completely different, because obviously Sly Cooper is very 3D platformer, very cartoony. Ghost of Tsushima is the opposite. It's very realistic. It was probably the very first like truly pretty PlayStation 4 game that I had played. What I mean by that is like, I remember distinctly there was like a tutorial area of Ghost of Tsushima where I think all the ads that had been on commercials or YouTube videos or whatever actually showed this, but you were like sitting underneath a tree. Leaves would be falling down on you, like pink leaves, and you'd be like
Mm-hmm.
just like kicking the crap out of somebody with a blade. But I thought that was very cool, very pretty. It had an interesting mechanic as well. Instead of having like waypoints or anything on the map, basically if you picked a place that you wanted to go on the map, wind would blow that way. And so you basically had to follow the wind to get to where you wanted to go, which I thought was interesting. And there was also a lot of the map was very open world style, and there was like high, like tall grass. And because the wind was whipping in a certain way, it was actually very pretty. Like you would almost see like waves amongst the grass as you were like galloping down it with your horse. So like that might sound weird, but that actually like is very compelling to me. Like just generally the art direction and the style, but also the story was very cool too. Basically, from what I remember, and I should have done some more research on this. It's been a while since I played it, but basically Jin Sakai is the main character. Remember that for sure. But basically, he is on like this mission to basically kick people out of his homeland that were basically terrorists. Not terrorists, I don't want to say that, but tyrannists or dictators of the era. So like he just tried to eliminate those people to get back his land and get it back to the space that he wanted it to be. And he was basically the Ghost, which was basically like this samurai soldier that was kind of like a vigilante of sorts, like kind of self-trained samurai that would, beat these bosses and eventually save the land. But it was a very cool story, very cool art direction. Again, very first like pretty PS4 game that I can remember that was like, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. Outside of like what we talked about before with like Xbox One and Forza. Like Forza is known for being a pretty game. That was the first like narrative driven game that I had seen that was like, oh my gosh, I have to play this. And shout out to my friend Fred from the gym that I was going to at the time. He was the reason why I played that. At first I was like, what is this game? Like, I don't know if I want to play it. He was like, dude, you got to play it. So shout out to Fred. But Gavin, go ahead and give me your 2021.
2021 for me was a sequel that from a game that came out in 2005, so 2005, called Psychonauts. It was Psychonauts 2, which is a great, incredible game. It's a little platformer game about some psychic. You're a young boy with psychic abilities. You run around a circus at a summer camp, and story plays out. This was the sequel had been talked about for 10 plus years. They're like, yeah, we want to do this. Timing wasn't right or something fell through. It finally came out. So I instantly clinged on to it and played it as soon as it came out, and it was just as fun and good as the first one while adding some new stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It was a great game. It does all the things I like in a game. 3D platforming that's fun but challenging, good story, great graphics, just fun to play.
Yeah. I actually played Psychonauts 2, not 2021. I don't want to say I played it back then, but I did play it in like 2022/2023. Excellent game. I didn't even play the first one. I didn't know like the backstory. I just knew that it looked fun. I think I had a YouTuber at the time, use Psychonauts 2, and I was just instantly hooked. I was like, I have to play this game because to your point, Gavin, I think you and I are very similar in like we very much appreciate 3D platformers. We don't get enough of them these days, and I think it did a lot of things well. I think it had a unique art style. Double Fine, who is the developer or publisher behind it, is always known for doing unique things, and I think they've never strayed away from that, which I appreciate that as a consumer because I feel like there's a lot of developers out there that chase what's hot or what's new. They really don't give a crap about what other people think. They just want to create cool games that they appreciate, and I think that shines through, especially with Psychonauts 2. They actually have a new game that's coming out sometime this year. Actually, it might be coming out like February or March this year, but it's called Kiln. Have you heard of it? KILN?
I have not. I think not.
Basically, the premise behind it is you make a pot of some sort, and you can make your own pot, and basically not like marijuana, but like literally a vase or a pot, And basically, there's games where it's all multiplayer based, but once you make your pot, there might be a video game. What do I want to say? Like a type of multiplayer game where you basically have to carry water from place to place. And that's how you get points. And like you could get like exploded basically, and you would lose water. And it's basically kind of like somewhat of a capture the flag, but you're capturing the water for your base, which I thought was interesting. The art style looks really cool. Again, I think Double Fine does a really good job of just not caring what other people want or what they do, but making things fun, quirky, weird. I don't know. I just really appreciate video game developers that don't stray away from that. They do what they want, and it obviously shows through. I don't know if you're looking it up, Gavin, if you have any.
Yeah, I was looking at it. It does look like a fun little party brawler type game. Like
Yeah.
it almost looked like a Splatoon, but instead of painting stuff, you're trying to
Yes.
take water from one side to the other, and you're wrecking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did look fun.
Perfect way to say that. Yeah, exactly the same as Splatoon, for sure. But I just thought it was interesting. That's going to be coming out, and I think they just made the announcement as of the developer direct that was Xbox's like launch event, and I think that happened last week or the week before. So one quick thing, Gavin, I know we're at the hour mark. I'm going to take a quick pause, and then we'll jump back on.
And that wraps up part 1 of our episode. Please stay tuned for next week's episode, where we will be diving deeper on games we loved between 2021 to 2025. Before you go, please like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes and content. Thanks, everyone.